The Miami Dolphins select
All right, we're live. Now we know the picks. They're finally in. We can start to figure out now the picks are in. Where do they actually fit? And that's the real question. So we got CBS Sports Emory Hunt joining us back on the show. We're breaking down the roles, the value, which of these picks can actually make an impact early. So let's get into it. Let's jump into the war room. Emory, thanks so much for joining us. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host and co-pilot Jason Sarney. Evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, and Emory, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for everyone for jumping on in the Raw Room.
Yes, we appreciate it. All right, let's just get into it, man. It's over. Now we got faces to put to these picks and names. Let's just start with Kaden Proctor. Looks like Dolphins plan to start Proctor inside a left guard. What do you think of that move, and does that change maybe how you view him versus taking a pure guard like Vega at number 12?
Not necessarily. At least they have a plan for him. And I feel like when you look at Proctor, who, has tremendous talent as a tackle, and, he has a body frame, obviously, as a guard. And I like the fact that while at Bama, you get cross-trained across different positions, so for him, it's going to be a seamless transition. And maybe they see a pathway for him to be a tackle. But I believe we talked about this before. When you have a guy that can play tackle and guard on game day, that's going to help you out a lot because, offensive line gets the short end of the stick in terms of game day, depth, because you're only dressing 45 on game day. And a lot of times O-line get the short end of the stick in terms of like how many guys you're going to dress. So if you have a guy that can play tackle, either tackle spot and also inside, I think that's pretty good.
Where did you have? Just quickly, where did you have hit? I don't remember. Proctor ranked in your tackle group. You had him as a tackle, right? Because I know you're. Yeah. I love what you do. You're specific. You put guys inside or outside when you talk about corner. You had him as a tackle. Where did you have him ranked kind of there with the Freelings and all those guys?
Well, he was my number 5 tackle, so definitely had a high grade on him, over an 80 grade, which is would be considered a first round grade. So, he was up there in the top 5. I thought this was a really good, crop of tackles. And, he was someone that went what I thought he was going to go. And so there were 2 more tackles, I believe, that rated behind him. So he's right there in the middle of those guys that I had really good grades on.
Moving on to our second pick, Chris Johnson. Looks like Jeff Hafley is going to love him. John Eric Sullivan mentioned that he could be playing a little bit of nickel, but obviously at San Diego State, very much predominantly on the outside. He's very scheme versatile. Where do you see him ideally, and do you see him mixing it up plenty in the slot?
He can, because he's physical, and this is someone that was like my number 4 boundary corner with an 80 grade. So you look at back-to-back picks for the Dolphins, they got guys that I had first round, quote-unquote, grades on. But Chris Johnson, someone that can play press, he can play off, he has great technique, has the long arms, scheme diverse, so he's not predicated on just one scheme. He can do a lot of different things, and because he's so good with his hands and has good technique, you can trust him on the inside. So I just, again, the Dolphins had a bunch of picks they had to make, and right off the bat, if we're looking at this like going in order, the first 2 picks, they got really very good players that could step in and start day one.
Yeah. And you like you said, you like him on the outside. He can play a little inside too, right? Hafley's face lit up when he talked about Johnson. You see Johnson's primary outside. You like him press or more zone? And
he's diverse. He could play either one, and that's what makes him a good talent, because you're not relegated to having to have a scheme specific guy. So if you're able to play, in any defense, you're more valuable. Just like the point I made for Proctor, his ability to play essentially across the offensive line outside of center, it makes him valuable and that's probably what they're trying to do here is maximize the 53 and or the 45 on game day with guys that can do different things, depending on the situation and also the defense of the offense they're facing.
Real quick on Chris Johnson, and a name that I kind of like to think that there's a little bit of a comp to from a little bit long ago in the Dolphins world, the original Patrick Surtain. A little smaller school, similar size and weight, fluid, just smooth kind of guy, and obviously has that versatility. Is that a decent comp for Dolphin fans for a certain age?
I actually went with my colleague at CBS Sports in Bryant McFadden, a guy that's 6 feet, 185, 190 pounds, has really good technique. B-Mac had some of the best technique, that I had seen at the cornerback position when he was coming out of his class. And so B-Mac is a technician, and this is what Chris Johnson reminds me of, someone that's like that can, really just stay in his back pedal patiently, can, not really wowed and surprised by what the receivers do at the line of scrimmage or when he's playing off cover. So he understands what the goal is of the play, and that's why he doesn't get beat often.
Yeah, and shout out to the chat. They always love you. Everybody in the chat, make sure you give a thumbs up, subscribe, get us to the goal, man. We got Emory Hunt here, CBS Sports, football game plan, great draft guide, breaking it down with us. We're not only getting evaluated on who we got, but where they fit. All right, I want to move on to my favorite pick, man, Jacob Rodriguez. When you look at him, let's go to Rodriguez. What do you see him early? Mike or like a weak side next to Jordan Brooks? And what do you see as long-term spot? I see he's a Mike. What do you see, and what did you like about Jacob Rodriguez there at that 43 spot?
I think at 43 was best suited for him. He's my number 7 inside linebacker. So, that's sort of around where, the grade I had was a 77. So that's sort of around, the second round area. I think he'll be best going sideline to sideline, which is what he did at Texas Tech. In the nature of college football, you're spreading the field, you're getting sideline to sideline. The transition going from a spread open, game in college to a more condensed physical one is where he's going to have to make the jump. How consistent can he be in terms of getting run fits, and how consistent can he be in stacking and shedding? And that's going to be the difference between him, becoming a pure inside guy, which I think he can be, or, a weak side guy, run and chase guy. But, he has the ability, he has the twitch and the quickness that you want to see, which is why he made a lot of plays at Texas Tech. You want to see the pro game is a little bit more physical. So that's something that you don't see a lot of, especially in the Big 12 at the collegiate level.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the most controversial spot of the Dolphins draft, that's Caleb Douglas at 75. How does he stack up versus the field, who was left on the board? Not only Malik Fields, who the Giants jumped up and traded up a spot in front of us. Did you see it early, or you just felt, okay, this guy in league circles, this is not a surprise he went? How did you stack him versus what was on the board there?
I have the same grade on him that I had on Jacob Rodriguez. So, in that he's in the ballpark. And he was my number 9 Z receiver. And, for a guy that has the twitch and the go to get downfield, get vertical, you like that with the 6'3" frame. But I just felt like at times he plays smaller than his 6'3" frame. And he's going to have to play big consistently. Now, he's someone that can track the ball rather well. He gets deep down the field. He's easy in how he moves. So, again, we're talking about what, round 2, 3? And
round 3,
I feel like that's a good pick here for the Dolphins. So they've not only have they gotten good players, I feel like they've gotten them at the right spots too. So they're building out a roster, building out a team. And as they're working through the draft, I think they're doing a really good job.
They ended up getting a couple of more receivers. Chris Bell, obviously he's got the ACL, but when you see him fully healthy, do you see him as more a Z, an X? He is versatile, but where do you see him ideally in the NFL succeeding?
He was my number 5 Z, so I had a higher grade on him than I did on Douglas. And the thing with Bell is mostly about will he be the same guy coming off of the injury? I mean, we saw the ACL drop Jermod McCoy to round 4, and all of what you've heard about his injury and his return. Now you hope that's not the case, and you hope Bell can get back to what he was, prior to that injury, because his game is predicated on power and explosiveness. And without that, it changes his projection. But, again, because of where they took him, this is someone you're willing to take a chance on because of those superb skills. And again, I had a better grade on him than on Douglas, but both guys nonetheless. Again, here in this round, this is where the Dolphins, as I'm watching this play out and rehashing this as we're talking about it, they're making good picks. And this is what the draft is all. I know this, like for a full calendar week, it's been about consensus board, but you look at the players, it's talent acquisition. And the Dolphins so far, what were it, 5 picks in?
Yeah.
They've gotten good players, and I'm never going to begrudge a team for drafting good players.
Yeah. Quickly on Bell, and I agree with you, and I'll touch on the consensus board at the end here, but quickly on Bell, I'm glad you mentioned Z. I was going to ask you where the fit is there. To me, like, the release package is not there yet. Just get him open in space in the middle of the field, let him go. That UM play, right? That one UM play was a perfect example. Is that where you see him just scheme him open, let him go 0 to 60, straightforward, just that burst he has?
He's not as polished of a route runner. And so, when you keep him off the line of scrimmage, you can kind of put him in motion, get him a running start. You kind of give him that free release to where he can be that catch and run guy. And at 6'2", 220, that's good momentum. That's good force. That's good explosiveness on the move. And so that's the difference between the Z and the X, where, if I trust you more so to get off press, I'll move you to an X. Now, he got an X body type, but his route running has to become much more consistent.
Yeah.
And so, this is an area where he's probably not going to be pressed to start right away or get in as a starter. And he's working himself back from injury. So he has the luxury of working on his game behind the scenes before he gets ready to play. This may be somebody that comes up and plays well, I would say, week 9 on. Don't expect much from him earlier in the season. And then you'll see him start to, catch his sea legs underneath him and make things happen toward the back end of the season.
I'm glad you said that, because in this particular year, for a guy like Chris Bell and the Dolphins, there is no rush whatsoever. So take your time, get him right. We need him to be available for the next 4 years and hopefully more. So fully agree with you there. So touching on, Caleb and Bell, now we're going to move inside to the slot. Pure slot guy in Kevin Coleman. My thing about him, I think that he is a very adaptable individual. This is going to be his 5th offense in 5 years. 4 schools, now in the pros. What are your thoughts about Coleman, and could he sneakily be kind of leading this rookie class of receivers, maybe in receptions right away?
He has to work on his route running as well, especially, playing through contact. I feel like that's an area where he's going to have to get better and show that he has that nuance. But he's your traditional slot receiver, 5'10", 175. Quickness. Yeah, I thought he played better at Missouri than he did at Mississippi State. And we saw him go to Jackson State and all of these other places, right? And so I thought this past season he showed some good ability on film. Got him into the Senior Bowl and got himself drafted. He elevated his stock during this season. But for me, I think special teams will have to be his way first because you look at what they have on a roster. You talk about a roster that has, Tutu Atwell. That's, I think, is a better slot receiver. And the Washington guys, Malik and also Taj, both of those guys are kind of similar in terms of what Kevin Coleman brings to the table. So he has his work cut out for him. And I think that's why, special teams will have to be the way he's going to have to go right out of the gate. Because if you talk about where these guys were as prospects coming out, Atwell was a little bit better. I was a big fan of Taj Washington more so than Malik Washington, although Malik was good after the catch. He was physical. He essentially turned into a running back. So Coleman, it's a nice collection, and you let these guys battle out.
Yeah. If I said which one of these 3 rookie receivers leads the team in catches, who would you pick?
Probably Douglas if we're looking at who's going to be available and who has a clearer path. Because Bell, we just talked about, like, you can't expect Bell to be there right away. Coleman has a tougher task with those guys, those slot guys, and Douglas, because of his height and his ability to get in, and he was the first one chosen. So
Yeah.
he has the leg up in terms of getting on the field early.
So going back to the third round here, the Dolphins made an interesting pick with Will Kazmarek blocking Y inline tight end from Ohio State. What were your thoughts about that and what he could bring to the Dolphins offense, specifically from a physicality standpoint?
Well, the first line of my scouting report I have, it says serves as an extension of the offensive line, which how he's able to mix it up at the line of scrimmage with defenders. So there's your inline tight end, and there's your blocking tight end. And so that makes the Kozoil selection make more sense. Did they take Kozoil?
No, they took Traore.
Right? So that makes him makes more sense because you get a guy that's your route running guy, your flex guy, or whatnot, and here's your inline blocker. And this is where you look at things when they draft, like, okay, everyone looks for the flash. Well, fans tend to look for the flash, but when you look at it fit and need and okay, building a roster out, this was a solid pick because how often you're going to get guys that that can block. I know that was a big issue for the Jags that fans had. Well, why would you take this guy this early? Well, if they felt like they did their research and they liked him as the best blocker of the group, then it makes sense, especially when you look at a team like the Dolphins that has good depth already at tight end. Dulcich, I thought, really stepped up. I'm still excited about Conyers.
Another Texas Tech.
Right.
Texas Tech.
Hopefully he gets an opportunity. So this was them building out that depth chart. So they brought in a couple of free agents, they drafted a couple guys, and I feel like this one has the role as is strictly your blocking tight end.
Yeah. Quickly, you mentioned, I just want to talk the run on blocking. You said Proctor 56. I think Roush went 69. Delp's even considered a blocker 73. Where did you stack as the inline Y guys? How did you have Kazmarek there?
He was my number 9 inline tight end. So, there's a couple of guys that went ahead of him. Roush went ahead of him. Proctor went ahead of him. Who else I had? Raritan went ahead of them. Klein. Yeah. And also the number 1 was that went to Baltimore was Matthew Hibner.
Oh, Hibner. Yeah, they traded up for Hibner. I liked Hibner. Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
For Seydou Traore, an international pathway program, he had 2 stints in 2 different schools, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Do you think he could get on the field in the NFL right away, or do you think this is a kind of stash and develop a little bit more? Obviously, the antithesis of Kazmarek, he is a receiving-based tight end. He really is not going to factor in the blocking. But when would you say the Dolphin fans should expect him on the field, all things considered?
Probably next year, because again, you're thinking about obviously they want to probably use multi-tight end sets coming from Green Bay, coming from Boston College. And so, they're probably going to lean more on guys that can make good catches underneath, but also are very good blockers. So they're going to try to find ways to get multiple tight ends on the field. So for Traore, it's about, okay, how can I be? He's essentially the Greg Dulcich in this group that they drafted, right? So this is someone that's a receiving guy. It's a move guy. He's a flex tight end. He's my number 6 flex tight end. So he has good fluidity. He has good athleticism. He's a bigger body wide receiver type, tight end. And I think that's gonna kind of yield itself to him flashing in the preseason. But when we're talking about 53, now you're taking away from the receiving core, how many backs you keep, how many corners you so that's where it gets tricky. But this is if I had to project forward, I would say this is a guy that's gonna probably be more involved in 2027 than 2026.
Yeah, awesome. A quick low-fi's. We know you were high on Jaylen Farmer. Are you happy where he landed with the Colts? And I will say, thank you for the advice on the consensus board, because I had Rutledge pretty high, and I wasn't even surprised how high he went. But yeah, Farmer, did you like the spot? Because I know you're a huge Jaylen Farmer. He goes to the Colts, right?
Yeah, he went to the Colts, and that's interesting. That's cool about Rutledge though, because it was wow, he's. I
don't know if you remember I said I was that show.
Right, and he's a very good player. So when you have is like art, when you see a good player, take him, because if they would have waited, they wouldn't have got him, right? And so I like that Farmer went to the Colts. The Colts drafted one of my. It was funny. The same draft class, I was high on Braden Smith.
Oh, the tackle, the right tackle,
more so than Quentin Nelson. And they ended up getting both. And so I was like, oh, that's the best of both worlds. So the Colts have a knack for drafting very good offensive linemen. So they've done a really good job. So so I was glad to see Farmer go.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the shocks of the night of Rutledge going in the first round. Shocking in terms of like, oh, they really pulled the trigger and got their guy.
Yeah.
Not the fact that they got a bad player, because he's a phenomenal guard.
Yeah, it's funny. And I thought of you during this draft when I did it. I go, you're like, man, hey, if you think you're seeing it right, see it right, put it and go with it. And it kind of worked out. It's funny.
Now look how it worked out for you.
Yeah, I think I had by 75. This is not patting my. I think 68 of the players were gone off my top 75. So
but think about how good that felt when you saw him going.
It felt good,
Everybody
man.
was like, what is this? Who is that? And you had him as your top guard, right? That's why I always tell people, man, like, stick to your guns. Like, people see it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Nobody wants to hear about me and my board, but let's go on to the Dolphins draft. Another guy they drafted in day 3. Let's move on to day 3 here. Kyle Lewis. What do you project him? Best, you see him safety, linebacker, hybrid, star, a little bit of both. But if you had to pick, this is the spot where he'll make it as an every down player. If that happens, is it weak side linebacker or strong safety for you?
He's my number 3 outside linebacker, and I have it designated as a weak side linebacker. So, because you saw, it was funny because in the studio we had both feeds up. So you had the ESPN feed and you had the NFL Network feed. And they obviously announced the pick at the same time. One said safety, one said linebacker. And it was like, so, all right, so he's going to end up playing both probably. And this is nothing new. It's like a Viper position, strong safety.
Yeah.
All of that is kind of the same now, so he's probably going to be one of these when you're facing, I could tell you exactly what he's going to be. He's going to be a spy for, any mobile quarterback you guys face. So expect to see him involved in that situation. Where he's going to run, chase, and go get the quarterback and put pressure on the quarterback, flush him to one side, make him get rid of the football, cut the field in half or whatnot. Or if you have facing the offense that has backs in the passing game that do a great job, that's where he comes in because he can match up versus those guys and do great things and take away that option in the passing game.
That's good to hear. Very, very, very good to hear. Another player that I think could be a very big key kind of captain or defensive, and George is smiling here. I'm sticking to my guns here. I think Michael Taft could work his way into being a starting free safety, mainly because it's such a thin room that Miami has. But second, he's a leader on the field. He's instinctual. Do you think that he has a shot? And what's your evaluation of Taft as a player?
He was my number 9 free safety in the class, with a 75.5 grade. He played a lot of football. Takes great angles to the football. Everything you want a free safety to do, technically he could do it. Now he has good, not great speed, so he's probably best suited in a split safety look or playing some sort of robber coverage where he can, kind of be in the intermediate area of the field and attack the ball that way instead of getting exposed deep down the field. He'll have to start as a core special teamer, but then he'll get worked into the rotation as a sub package guy.
Yeah, especially in this room. All right, let's move. We got a quick. We had one question. Hunt was what pick in the draft caught you with the biggest question mark there?
Probably was it was probably Jeremiah McCoy falling so far.
Yeah, man.
And the Raiders got him. They got Stooks. They got Hezekiah Master. So the Raiders cleaned up in the secondary.
Yeah.
But it was him because earlier that day we were on. It was me, Brian Kelly, it was me, Leger Douzable, and Damian Harrison. And we were talking about that. Where would he go on day 3? And I brought up, I'm old enough to remember the, Anthony Poindexter, who was supposed to be Ed Reed before Ed Reed was even a thought, and out of Virginia. And then he was supposed to be a top 5 pick. Gets hurt. I think it was a neck, and he ends up getting drafted in the 7th round, but never plays in the NFL. He's now a great college coach. But I was like, man, I hope this doesn't happen to McCoy, where he was so great that he doesn't get drafted and doesn't play in the NFL, but then he goes with the first pick in the 4th round.
Realer says I didn't see a 40 on that. I think he ran a 4.50.
4.5, yeah.
Yeah, 4.50.
That's good speed.
Yeah, that's good. And I remember shout out to you. You said, "Look, McCoy with that knee. Let's not assume things." And look what happened. He ended up going in, which I thought was great value. At that point, you take the shot there,
Right.
and you hope it works out. All right, day 3. Other guys you pick one. We took Trey Moore, Max Ioane, the I'm probably saying his name wrong. The Iowa edge. We talked about Traore. Any of those guys, kind of DJ Campbell, the guard out of Texas. Any of these guys, like, okay, that was good value there.
Both Trey Moore and Devin Moore were really good picks. Trey Moore is my number 2 outside linebacker as a Sam backer, so I like his rushing ability. He's a rush guy. He's a blitz guy. He's gonna be a terror on special teams. And Devin Moore is someone that's 6'3", 200 pounds. Y'all to take Devin Moore. Somebody else took Devin Moore, but Florida.
No, Trey Moore, Texas.
Trey Moore, the edge. Trey Moore, yeah.
Trey Moore was my number 2 Sam, or number 2 outside linebacker, but I designated him as a Sam. I think that's the gem you guys got. But I even toss out a couple of as I'm looking at the roster, a couple of the undrafted rookies that you guys got.
Got a couple good ones.
Le'Veon Moss, obviously. Hankerson was someone that really stood out. I had a good grade on Hankerson. He just played a lot of football. He's smallish.
He didn't test well, right? That was the problem too. He didn't test well.
But he played. It's almost like Taff. He plays faster than he tests.
Yeah.
And Conga was a good one too. But Le'Veon Moss was a good back that you guys got. So I listen. And McCulley, you missed out on Malachi Fields. Yeah. There goes McCulley. Inside wide receiver, big body guy. Had a really good hula bowl. Goes up and makes the play. So I was a big fan of him too. So
funny you said that. I mentioned last show. Somebody asked about it. He's kind of a poor man's Malachi Fields,
right?
Yeah.
American Bowl he played at. They were both in the same.
I know Jason has one guy he really loves. Go ahead, Jason.
Wisconsin's Mason Riger. I
think y'all got him. Yes.
Yes. Go for it. Go for it.
Cleaned up on that UDFA.
So that's why I love the Dolphins draft. And he was my number 10 edge rusher with a 75.5 grade. It's crazy because he went out there and balled out at the Shrine Bowl, did everything he needed to do. 3 sacks in the game, Shrine Bowl MVP, and showed up big. And then you go and watch the film, he shows up consistently there. And so, he's technically sound, he can set the edge. This is going to be the new Andrew Van Ginkel, right? Where you kind of underrate his skill set, then he's out there making plays. So this is where I feel like the Dolphins always clean up. There's always at least 3 dudes they take that end up being good players. The kid from Texas A&M Commerce a couple of years ago that's now with the Chiefs.
Kaden
Proctor started out as an undrafted and balled out and got on the team. So the Dolphins, I felt like got an A for their draft because when you encompass the what happened in the offseason in terms of the jettison of the roster and bringing in more players and have all these draft picks, it's easy to rest on your laurels and whiff on a lot of these picks. But they not only nailed these picks, but some of these undrafted free agents are guys that should have been drafted, like a Moss, like a Riger, like a Trey Moore. These are really good picks. Conga this was a knockout class for the Dolphins. A lot of youth, and which makes it fun for a coach because he gets to coach these guys up, and we'll see how this youth plays out on the field. It'll be fun to watch all 4 quarters of the preseason for the Dolphins because they got a lot of young talent that's going to be out there playing.
We're right back to 2019. It feels like, that was Van Ginkel's rookie year. He was a 5th rounder, but I love the comp. They're very, very, size, athleticism, very similar players. And of course, Wisconsin.
Real quick, I know we got to get you out of your shoe. Lewis Moore. People are talking about Lewis Moore, the safety. I don't know if you mentioned him.
Yeah, he was a solid player. If anything, he has core special teamer upside. Just I didn't like the speed or the twitch for to play deep safety or something like that. I felt like he had to see confirmation first before he went. Like, you just got to go. Yeah. And that hesitance, that half second of hesitation is the difference between a completion or a PBU or a turnover. And the margins are razor thin in the NFL.
All right. Last question here. Give me some of your favorite draft classes. And I want to let I liked what the Browns did. I thought they did really good. somebody made a joke, was AI drafting for the Browns.
Yep.
I think my brother, because they did so good. Some of your favorite classes overall from this past draft?
Browns #1, Raiders, Giants did a fantastic job. I thought the Jets would like the Dolphins, and because they had a bunch of picks, did a phenomenal job. And I would say I would also say the Ravens did a solid job as well, considering, so I found myself this year doing the same thing, like saying, man, as day 2 and day 3 going on, like, wow, that's a really good pick. Oh, wow, that's a good pick. Hey, that's a really good pick. Man, that fits there. Like, I don't think nobody had a bad draft. I felt like this is like the 3rd year in a row. I just found myself saying, like, I can see that. Like, that makes sense, and that's actually a good pick. So I'm always that positive, but I felt like those teams that I mentioned really stood out to me the most.
Yeah, Bucks did good. Then no one says Ravens wanted Proctor. I don't see I couldn't see Proctor going past the the Detroit line. So overall, you like the Dolphins draft. You gave it a what, Emory? Here's the grade, just so the fans can hear.
I gave it an A. We got to what, the 6th pick before guys had, were either less than a 75 or outside of the top 10 of their positional ranking. So they got an A for me. Like, this was awesome.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll get you out of here, Emory. Thank you so much for joining us again. We'll do it again maybe during the season. Where they can find you, what you got going on with footballgameplan.com, CBS Sports HQ. Let everybody know. And you're Ross Tucker, what you got going on with Ross Tucker on the podcast.
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at @FootballGamePlan. Go get that draft guide, because it's now a preseason guide. Footballgameplan.com/2026 draft guide.
Let's go.
And follow me along all the way on CBS Sports HQ.
Yeah, my man, Emory Hunt. Thank you so much, man. We'll catch you again and do this again. Have a good one.
Appreciate you, guys.
Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, take care.
That's great stuff.
Man. Oh, he's great, man. He's one of my favorites, if not my favorite. And I tell you,
Van Ginkel comp out there before I even had mentioned it. That got me excited.
Yeah. So, yes, great stuff. Gave the Dolphins an A. If you guys have a few questions in the chat, we can stay around, Jason, for a few minutes.
Couple minutes, yeah. Fire away, everybody.
Fire away any of your questions. Hunt, he left. Did the Jets get the right quarterback? Well, Clay Kublik, I'm not sure.
I don't know about that. I think they got the backup for whoever their future franchise quarterback is. So
yeah.
That was a nice pick. The Jets did do well. They really did do well.
So we got a couple things coming. I got a fun little maybe hype video. I'm not going to tease. Got something coming out. We got more things planned. You guys know. Make sure you subscribe. Not only subscribe, turn on your notifications. Get us to 3,000. Share it with your friends. Share it. Let them know Finn's Faithful is the place to be for Dolphins content. I know there's a lot out there, but I'm just saying. We appreciate all the support. Retiring guys. Seriously, do y'all slow down?
I see what you did there. That's a good promo for what's going on in Hard Rock this weekend. Real nice.
I wouldn't say it's their strengths, Idle Man, setting the edge.
No. Reiger is a situational pass rusher. If he makes the team, he will be a DPA, as our guest last night, Ian Cummings said, a designated pass DPR, designated pass rusher. Yeah. But I'm thinking BPA.
You're a BPA guy now.
I'm not. But I will say this. One more thing on Reiger. The comps to Van Ginkel, it's remarkable in the sense that coming on into the NFL, Van Ginkel was not considered an every down guy. Was not considered a full, complete football player. Give this time.
Yeah.
Give this time for Mason Reiger. And if it doesn't necessarily happen with the Dolphins, it might happen with someone else. And I think we saw Andrew Van Ginkel become a Pro Bowl somewhere else.
Bottom line, as we're going to start next week, we got other guests. We got a big local guest here you're going to like a lot coming Monday who covers the team, who's one of my favorites. I think he said a bench. They just got a ton of good. It reminds me of the Jimmy Johnson era when they had 13, 12, 11 picks. They're going to get some guys out of this draft, a ton of good players. And as you go kind of poll executives around the league, I saw one comment, one NFC executive say today, Dolphins killed it. I mean, they just got a bunch of good football players. So Dolphin fans, be optimistic, be happy. The future looks bright here, and they set a culture in this year one. So that's good. And Dad Dean says, who do the Dolphins go after now? Draft's over. They said no big. He said no big ticket meals. You can see. He said literally no big ticket guys.
Correct.
Smaller depth guys. I mean, I say Espinosa is probably is he big ticket?
No, he's like a good discount to TJ Maxx.
Yeah. TJ Maxx, okay.
Yeah, he's not one of those, New York City.
I mean, he might be Burlington. He might be a step up.
That's fine.
He might be Burlington.
Let's remember back in the day, back a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about the fact that they were going to be shopping in the New York City, the garment district, where those guys are selling knockoffs.
Yeah,
that's pretty much where they're going to shop the rest of the way here until the season.
All right, well, guys, we're gonna get out of here. It's been a long week. We're gonna throw some content up. Be on the lookout either this weekend or even tomorrow. I got something I'm working on. We'll see if it gets together. We'll stay tuned. It's a fun little thing, video I've been working on. So stay tuned. We'll drop some stuff, some content from this show. Everything. Just stay tuned to Finn's Faithful. Make sure you guys are subscribed, thumbs up, share it. Let's get rocking and rolling, baby. We appreciate all you guys. You guys will make this show. You guys are faithful. You guys are Finn's Faithful. So we appreciate it. All right. Till next time. For Jason Sarney, for myself, stay Finn's Faithful. We are out.